maybe. It's about a 380-page book. I'll cover it in 2 minutes. How's that? So you don't have to buy it if you haven't had it yet. All right? Pretty simple. Well, it's a little bit more complex than that. But let's be honest. With when I started looking at movements, years ago, I was like, why can't this guy reverse the bar weight as much as him? And maybe this guy's max is they're both 400 pounds. But when they go to squat, they can't reverse as fast. One reverses and it's nice and slow. One reverses and it's much faster. But their max is the same. And what I began to look at is the amount of force that these athletes are able to produce. And this being force, this is the time at which you're going to produce force. And basically what I found was every movement is a triphasic action. So the first part of the movement, if I'll split, this is the middle of the bottom of the squat, let's say, you're lowering the weight so you're producing less force, and then you produce force in a certain parameter of time. We know that's power. This is power athlete, right? Hopefully you guys know what power is. Now, the key to this is I had two athletes that were the same strength, and guess what? They were the same strength. I think they benched around 440. One threw the shot put 55 feet, and one threw it 65 feet. And when I analyze these athletes, this V right here, and the 65-footer was shorter. So everybody goes, oh, he throws farther because he can produce more force in a faster time, which makes sense. But after experiment after experiment, and look, I'm not that smart, okay? So the first person to look at this graph would have said, oh, there's something here. Took me hundreds of reps and tests to go, oh, this is why he goes more. I got to keep producing more force. But here's what happened. There was a correlation between here and here. So your ability to absorb force and withstand force was the key factor. You'll never see in a dynamic movement somebody come in super slow and then go fast unless it's planned. So your ability to stop and handle the bench press or the squat at the bottom dictates how hard and fast you can move it. So nobody really trained it with precision or with specific stress. So this is the eccentric phase. The middle here is basically the iso phase, and this is the concentric phase of triphasic training. So what I do, the best way to train something is to train it in a block. If you have a quality, you train it for 2 straight weeks to 3. Why? You're taking the organism and putting very specific stress on it. Okay? And when I say that, if you have an organism that's trying to adapt to something, you have a triathlon here and a powerlifting meet here, and you ask that person to train for both. How's that going to go? It's going to go shit. If you don't know that, it's not going to go well. You're not going to get optimal results. You might get better at everything, but you're going to get marginal gains. So, but if you ask them to train for this mark right here, whatever it is, maybe it's strength, and you teach that organism, because here's the thing with adaptation. You're going to pull it in this direction a little bit, you're going to pull it in this direction a little bit, but if you focus on one spot, the adaptations are much greater. And then you just keep building on those. So whatever quality you want, you can actually teach the organism to be higher functioning. Okay? I'll get into deep adaptation. I'll throw something out there. If this is eccentric, here's the deal. If I focus 2 weeks on eccentric, everything in the body, the hormones, the organs, the brain, adapts to eccentric training. If I'm not doing much else. So if my whole program's eccentric, what you do is you take that organism so deep in that adaptation, and you may lose it later, but you've taken it so deep that it has a tolerance and a resistance towards stressors of what it adapted to during the eccentric phase that you'll never ever get there if you don't focus on 3 weeks or 2 weeks of complete eccentrics. Does that make sense? So what is triphasic? It's basically 1 to 2 weeks or 2 weeks of eccentrics 2 more weeks of isos, weeks, let's say 3 and 4, and then weeks 5 and 6 is the concentric part. Now, you can put download weeks in there. They don't have to be done together. They can be done apart, and it's mainly an off-season training program, okay? It's not fun. It's ugly, okay? And the reason Triphasic, I've sold 60,000 books, is that it's not a program. It's a concept you put in your current program and any exercise you want. That's it. And I know a lot of geniuses out there have said, hey, I've done eccentrics, I've done isos, but I actually put it into a system. That's all I did, okay? And did the same thing, okay? The benefits of it, basically what you're doing with eccentrics is you're remodeling tissue. At the cellular level, you're pulling tissue apart. The immune system goes up, causes white blood cell reaction. Sounds horrible, okay, but that's training, all right? You create the tissue, make it stronger. It'll rebuild itself, okay? So for 2 weeks, you're rebuilding tissue. Now, I have multiple books laid out, but you could take supplements also during that time that help recover you from eccentrics. You can take a lot of things, okay? The next 2 weeks, you got brand new tissue. The immune system's remodeled it. The actin and myosin head, in the muscle, when it twitches, there's actin and myosin. These heads, what the eccentric phase does is it breaks these. The immune system comes in, white blood cell response, rebuilds them, and it makes them thicker. So, by making these heads thicker, you're less resistant to injury. And then what I do is the isometric phase. It's the fastest way to get strong, period, end of story, isometrics. You do the isometrics in the stretch position with the new tissue that you've just created, and you can decrease your ability to get injured, soft tissues. You can't believe the amount of coaches that have emailed me and say, hey, we reduced our soft tissue. You didn't do my program, you just put specific stress into yours, and that was it, okay? And then once you create that tissue stronger, now here's where the beauty of transfer to sport is when you go down with 400 pounds and you stop it, all these qualities, the new tissue, and now that it's stronger, can reverse it. Because you have to realize the muscle, if this is your muscle, and this is the tendon, it's a bad representation, that's the most important. This muscle tendon junction is key for everything. You got it? You couldn't move without it. Now, its interaction is important. This is basically a 2-spring system. You have to strengthen both of these at the same time. So what Triphasic does is strengthens, rebuilds the tissue of the muscles. The isos will also affect the tendon a little bit. And then you go into your power phases, which will affect the tendon a little bit more. And then plyometrics will affect the tendon. Okay? But these two things together will make this a much stronger tissue, and then you can absorb more force. So my elite athletes got to a point where they would take 400, 500, 600 pounds, stop it, and do you guys know when the barbell hits the ground, you can hear that ting when you drop it? That's what it would sound like when they brought the bar down, most advanced athletes. So I'm telling you, there was that ping with the plates hitting the bar when they went to stop it as they were squatting and benching. That's how violent it was. And I knew I had something there, and that particular kid was 6'5", 270, had a 44-inch vertical, okay? Yeah, he was a world-class shot putter. But my point is that, so really quick on this, power lifters, they train a lot of strength, but they don't train plyos, they don't train speed, they don't train at light loads. So you're training the muscle the whole time. What do? They tear their muscles. And then you see all these combine guys, football guys, go to these combine places, and what do? They train speed, plyos, just to get ready for 40, right? So they train the tendon more. What happens? They pull their muscles when they run. This is the system. So Triphasic, the foundational stuff for this is that there's a system here that takes you through a process, okay, of training. So you train heavy weights, and then you get to the high speed stuff and more power training, And that's the process you have to go through because training is a process. And all these athletes nowadays want instant results. And I can get some instant results, but it's not going to lay the foundation for your tissues to be trained correctly. And then what happens, look, if this muscle becomes strong, the tendon, there's a certain interaction. I'm telling you right now, trust me when I say this, that if you get the interaction correct, specific, when you run, here's the beauty. When you run and this muscle can stretch the tendon more, you get a return of free energy. So for example, a world-class, when I say this, a world-class study, supposedly in the Soviet Union, I had it at one point, I haven't found it, but it was 5,000 meter runners. The difference was between the best in the world at 5,000 meters was that at 3,000 meters, the best guys in the world in the second level, what happened? When they ran, they started undulating their hips. They couldn't find VO2 max strength. There was nothing that indicated there was a difference between the best in the world and the ones that were just missed the medal stand. Except at 3,000 meters, their hips started to undulate more. What was that? That was their strength levels when the foot struck the ground couldn't support the forces, so their hips sagged, and then what propelled them forward? The muscle increased its work capacity at 3,000 meters to push them forward. This is why they were slower, because they're more metabolic. The other guy's hip never undulated, so when he struck the ground, where did he get his energy from? His tendon. It's free energy, people. It's free energy. So this is why he ran farther. His VO2 max may have been less. But this interaction is so important for every movement in sports. Whether you're throwing a baseball, whether you're running, any movement that involves a muscle and a tendon, triphasic is important for, is all I'm saying. Okay? Now, the beauty of this is, so when you do triphasic, you make those tissues more effective. People say, oh, they got in shape. Well, they may not have gotten in shape, but they're more economically sound, so they don't have to expend as much energy. That's the beauty of it, okay?